Hey boy, you can't stand here, you're gonna get hurt.
It was a rainy Tuesday morning in Bend, Oregon, a quiet mountain town where pine forests step for miles and storms roll in without warning. At Island 17, paramedics Hannah Moore and Daniel Brooks were already on edge. The call had come in vague but urgent. Possible medical emergency. Wooded area near Highway 97. The ambulance tore through traffic, siren cutting through the rain. And then, Hannah felt the sudden jolt as Daniel slammed the brakes. "Daniel!" she shouted. The ambulance skidded to a stop. Right there, in the middle of the road, stood a German shepherd. Soaked to the bone, the dog stood frozen, chest rising fast, ears alert, eyes locked directly on the ambulance. It didn't move. Daniel hit the horn once, then again, but the dog didn't move.
This can't be real. Is that dog waiting for us?
The dog looks deliberate. I'll move him.
Hannah said, already opening the door. Rain soaked her uniform as she stepped out, and instead of growling or barking, the German shepherd backed away a few steps, then sat, watching her closely. "Hey, boy," Hannah said softly, holding her palms out. "You can't stand here. You're going to get hurt." She guided him gently off the road, and the dog complied. But as soon as Hannah returned to the ambulance and shut the door, the German shepherd walked straight back to the exact same spot and stood there again. Daniel stared through the windshield. "Hannah, that dog just reset himself." Something tightened in her chest. "That's not a stray," she said quietly. "That's a signal." She stepped out again, slower this time, and crouched down, lowering herself to the dog's level. The German shepherd turned his head toward the forest lining the road, then stood and trotted away, moving with a calm certainty that left no doubt he wanted her to follow. Hannah hesitated for only a second. "Daniel," she called over her shoulder. "Call this in. I'm following him." Before we continue, here's a simple question for you. Would you follow a dog into the forest if it seemed urgent? Yes or no? Let us know in the comments. Now let's find out, what exactly was in the forest? The brush was thick, the slope slick with mud. Hannah nearly lost her footing twice as she pushed through soaked ferns and branches. And then she saw him. A man in his 70s lay beneath a cluster of evergreens, one arm twisted unnaturally, his face pale, his breathing shallow and irregular. "Sir!" Hannah dropped to her knees. "Can you hear me?" There was no response, and when she checked his pulse, it was weak. Her voice cracked as she shouted back up the hill.
Daniel! I've got an unconscious male! Possible stroke!
The German shepherd paced beside her, frantic but controlled, like he was afraid that if he panicked, everything would fall apart.
You did good. You did everything right.
They stabilized the man as quickly as they could, and after some time, when they lifted him onto the stretcher, the dog pushed forward, trying to climb in. "No, no," Hannah started, then stopped. She looked into his eyes and saw fear, trust, and something else. Hope. She opened the ambulance door wider. The German shepherd curled up immediately at the man's feet, head resting against the stretcher frame, as if he'd done this before. As if this was where he belonged. At the hospital, doctors moved fast, and soon the diagnosis was clear. A major stroke. One neurologist shook his head afterward and pulled Hannah aside. "If you'd been 20 minutes later," he said quietly, "we wouldn't be having this conversation." Hannah glanced down the hallway. The German shepherd sat rigidly outside the trauma bay doors, waiting. The dog refused to leave and stayed near the emergency entrance. Security tried to move him, but he came back. Staff tried to feed him, yet he wouldn't eat. Not until Hannah sat down beside him. Only then would he take a few bites, eyes never leaving the hospital doors. "That dog's guarding the building like it's his job," a nurse whispered. 3 days went by. The man still hadn't spoken, and his name finally appeared in the system. Walter Hayes, 74, with no visitors and no emergency contacts. Hannah couldn't stop thinking about the dog. On the 4th day, she and Daniel went to the administration. "He needs to see him," Hannah said. "That dog saved his life." After a long pause, they agreed. 1 visit. As the German Shepherd entered the hospital room, everything changed. The monitors beeped steadily. Walter lay still with unfocused eyes. The dog froze in the doorway, and then whimpered softly, a low, broken sound. As the dog stepped closer and whimpered again, Walter's fingers twitched, his lips trembled, and a single tear slid down his cheek. Then, barely audible, "Bailey?" Hannah covered her mouth. The German Shepherd pressed his head gently against Walter's hand. Walter clutched his fur over and over, as if grounding himself to the world. "I knew you'd come back," he whispered. From that moment on, Walter changed. He spoke more, ate more, and smiled often. Doctors called it remarkable, but one nurse said it best. "That dog didn't just find help," she whispered. "He gave him a reason to stay." Walter was eventually discharged, and his wife took Bailey home first. But that night, the German Shepherd returned to the hospital, curling up outside the emergency entrance and waiting again. Only when Walter himself came out the next morning, leaning on a walker, did Bailey finally rise. Walter knelt slowly. "You ready to go home, boy?" Bailey pressed into him, and together they walked away. Some stories remind us that loyalty cannot be trained, that love doesn't need language, and sometimes it stands in the middle of the road, stops traffic, and saves a life.